I've been from Tucson to Tucumcari to Tehachapi to Tonopah, but today I find myself in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's Drew from RoadRUNNER magazine, and I'm embarking on one of our classic Shamrock tours. 4 days, out and back, starting in Santa Fe, touring beautiful country with exciting roads and good riding. Each day promised unique sights and terrain, and each day delivered entirely different weather with it. I had 4 seasons in 4 days, from tumbleweeds to snowflakes and everything in between. I arrived in Santa Fe after dark. Cold, thin air, nearly 7,000 feet above sea level. New Mexico's capital. It's not only the highest capital city in the country, but also the oldest. Upon arrival, I texted RoadRUNNER cartoonist Ryan T. Cook in need of food recommendations. His advice was simple. Go to Allsup's, the local convenience store, and get a world-famous chimmy burrito. When a local tells you to eat gas station food, you don't ask questions, you do it. I dined beneath the glowing red signage with gas fumes in the air. Between 1926 and 1937, Route 66 ran straight through Santa Fe. It was eventually rerouted, but the feeling stuck around, survived by historic buildings and old signs. I followed the flickering lights towards an old sign that read, King's Rest Court Inn, the perfect place to call it a night. Day 1. Morning came cold. Heated grips on, heated seat on, gas tank full, coffee on the mind. Santa Fe sits at the base of the southernmost Rocky Mountains, surrounded by peaks climbing well past 12,000 feet. I headed east out of town along the old Las Vegas Highway, once part of the original Route 66 alignment. 2 lanes, gentle curves with snow-covered mountaintops in the distance. A flashing open sign pulled me into 2J's, a double-wide diner with picnic tables tucked into the trees outside of Pecos, New Mexico. Coffee? Check. Breakfast burritos? Check. The new Gold Wing stood out here, as did I, but curiosity bridges gaps quickly. Every stop turned into a conversation with the locals, and every conversation turned into a history lesson, and every lesson came with another suggestion of where to go. I arrived in Las Vegas, New Mexico, greeted by a town stuck in the 1800s. Designed in typical Spanish colonial style, the city boasts a central square downtown featuring the stunning Plaza Hotel. A quick leg stretch led me to the E. Romero Hose and Fire Co., home to New Mexico's first volunteer fire department. Stepping into the museum took me back in time. I ogled at horse-drawn hose carts from the 1800s, parked next to chain-driven fire trucks from the early 1900s. I chatted, and then more advice followed. As always, go see the hot springs in Montezuma when you're done here. So, I did. And then the winds came. Southbound on New Mexico Route 84, the mountains fell away into dust and sky. Barren land, cactus, and tumbleweeds were now my surroundings. At a filling station, I asked the attendant, "What's in Encino?" "Nothing," he said. Perfect, I thought. New Mexico Route 54 delivered exactly that. Nothing from Encino to Villanueva. State Road 3 became a wave of pavement. 50 miles of rising and falling without another vehicle in sight. I switched to sport mode, briefly forgetting that this bike weighs 850 pounds. The Goldwing moved with authority, all 6 cylinders and 1800 cc. The day ended at Villanueva State Park. Shaded cottonwoods lining the Pecos River. Quiet earned. Day 2. The next morning pointed north. Tres Piedras sits at 8,101 feet, and New Mexico Route 285 climbed steadily toward it. More green, more wind, more weather. I was headed to visit my friend Tanya on her goat farm. We met over coffee, and she handed me a list of recommendations and sent me on my way. New Mexico Route 64 east towards Taos is what I call the lonely road. Very little traffic. Endless mountains flank you for 30 miles, so if you count the peaks, you're not alone. Near the halfway point, a giant crack in the earth appeared and the ground disappeared from underneath me. My stomach dropped and my field of vision expanded tenfold. The Rio Grande Gorge Bridge is a can't miss, literally. It is one of the highest bridges in America and definitely one of the most impressive that I've crossed. I passed through Taos, New Mexico rather quickly. 20 years ago, RoadRUNNER founder Christian Neuhauser said the coffee was overpriced here, so I didn't bother to check inflation. Rounding out the day, I was back south on New Mexico Route 518. Up in elevation, tall pines had now replaced open plains, and tight curves followed. Despite its size, the Goldwing danced. The DCT handled all the thinking, and I handled the views. Day 3. I convinced Tanya to skip work today, so I swung by the farm to pick up my co-pilot and guide. The Goldwing did what it does best and cruised. I almost forgot she was back there. The town of Chama was the goal, west via New Mexico Route 64. We just had to cross some mountains first. But spring had other ideas. The sun disappeared behind the clouds, the temperature dropped quickly, and out of nowhere, flurries turned to snow. We were in disbelief of the completely random snowstorm. I enabled rain mode and quickly turned the bike around, and as soon as we dropped in elevation, not 10 miles later, the sun was out like nothing had happened. We made a quick backup plan to head further north across state lines toward Colorado. The weather looked better there. In the town of Antonito, Colorado, you'll find the historic Cumbres and Toltec Scenic Railroad, and it's one of the best of its kind in the country. And like I say, it's always a good day when I see a train. But more bad weather was threatening, so we double backed across state lines into New Mexico, back towards Tres Piedras. Day 4. Morning revealed 4 inches of snow covering everything, Goldwing included. The high desert, blanketed white with snow, is a sight to see. So what do you do on a motorcycle trip when it snows? Why not some wrenching? Tanya mentioned her old 1976 Elsinore needed some maintenance. After a quick carburetor clean and some fresh gas, it fired right up. Something to play with once the snow stopped. In the meantime, why not a goat hike? I mentioned I was on a goat farm, right? Day 5. The snow vanished overnight as if nothing had ever happened. Breakfast came from the Chili Line Depot, a nearly century-old building that once served as a bar and dance hall for the railroad that connected Denver to Mexico City. The day's mission was more riding, so we pointed the Goldwing yonder toward Chama again. New Mexico Route 64 over Brazos Summit delivered sweeping views and towering rock faces of the Brazos Peaks. Here in Chama, the Cumbres and Toltec train line meets its western terminus, the opposite end from the Antonito, Colorado station we saw the other day. From there, we rode down into Heron Lake State Park. Bright blue water appeared between the pines. It was the largest body of water I'd seen all trip. But eventually, it was time to head back. New Mexico Route 64 met Route 84, pulling us south through Abiquiu. Green trees faded to brown desert and then into towering red rock. Georgia O'Keeffe used to call these parts home, and it was easy to see the inspiration. Over miles and miles, we watched through the windshield as the landscape melted away. By the time I rolled back into Santa Fe, it was hot again and dry. I had 4 days of riding and one unexpected snowstorm and countless roads. Santa Fe and northern New Mexico has so much to offer. Go and see for yourself. And with the end of every adventure, I like to ask, how many days until the next one?